Welcome in, everyone. This is Spitting Fire. I'm Matt alongside Connor, and it's Super Bowl week.
Woo!
Woo woo. Connor, how you doing, man?
Stoked. I'm frothing right now. I just told you that. I'm so excited.
And you don't use frothing as much as I do.
Never. That's how frothing I am right now.
Because the Rams are in the Super Bowl, man. Talk to me. Just start it off. Get me going.
Dude, it's honestly like it took all of last week to sink in that it really was even happening. Like I had to keep telling myself, like, no, the Rams are in the Super Bowl. We didn't even recap the championship games. I think we're gonna get into that, but man, it's just been an awesome time. It really makes me hate the 2 weeks in between the championship game and the Super Bowl because now I'm just been stressed the entire time, and I just like want it to be Sunday. Games at 3:30 Pacific, which is like so late. Like, what am I gonna do all day? I made the mistake last time when the Rams played the Patriots that I was far too intoxicated come kickoff. So I gotta keep that drinking down early in the day so that I'm not too busted up for it.
Well, we're
But
not going to have the most boring Super Bowl twice in a row. Last time Rams Patriots is so boring. So,
dude, I know. And 2 out of 3, I mean, last year's Super Bowl sucked too. Bucks Chiefs, it was like, what was it, like 31-9 or something? It was like a blowout also. So
right.
yeah, I mean, it's shaping up. It should be a good game. I'm okay with it being a bad game if it's a blowout in favor of the Rams. I'm very okay with that situation. But
Of
yeah, no, it
course.
should be fun.
I was talking about this with a friend before we got on the podcast, and I was like, if your team wins, to me, I'd want to watch the game a little bit more, kind of lock in with some buddies. And if my team loses the Super Bowl, I just want to go to the Super Bowl party. So,
Mhm.
as a favorite, what are you doing? How are you going to take in the game?
Yeah, so I was gonna watch it literally by myself with no one else. I'm gonna watch it. One of my best buddies from high school, he's a diehard Rams fan, also a season ticket holder, and so I'm gonna watch with him, and then the two lady friends will be there. So it'll just be the four of us. We'll be locked in on the game.
Love it. And Connor, I feel like when you get nervous or you get bored, you get nervous. So you've been waiting for this game. How you been passing the time, my man? You've been doing a bunch of betting. You've been thinking about all these different parlays and this and that.
A lot of college basketball betting, just keep my mind off of it. I've been surprised that I go through my few different websites that I read content from, Ringer, Athletic, different places like that, and I'm surprised there's not more articles coming out. Now I'm thinking there's going to be stuff coming out, but you always hear coming into the Super Bowl there's a big story on a random tight end on the team, or there's something coming out. I feel like there hasn't been a ton of that.
I
So
think we peaked. I feel like we peaked like 5, 6 years ago, like before Grantland shut down.
yeah, I think the other thing is that nothing is new now, right? With so much social media, you've heard all the stories already. There's no like new stories on guys. I think the interesting thing that's getting a lot of play right now is just the Sean McVay coaching tree, right? And so you have Zach Taylor, you have Matt LaFleur. Now Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coordinator, is going to go be the coach of the Vikings. And then obviously like Shanahan, they worked together, and I guess McVay worked for him. But like it's just crazy the amount of coaches. Oh, and Brandon Staley on the Chargers. So you got 4 now head coaches in the NFL or 3 head coaches from McVay, who's the youngest coach in the NFL, who when he was hired was the youngest coach ever. I think that's something to show. And there's a lot to say about McVay and what he's great at, what his weaknesses are. But one thing he does is identify coaching talent. And I think it's crazy to see all these guys have gone places and been successful, right? LaFleur's killed it with the Packers. Who's to say how much of that is him versus Rodgers? But there's something to being able to manage Rodgers, right? And so even though you could say LaFleur is not necessarily the greatest coach because he has Rodgers, there's something to being able to manage those guys, right? Manage those
Absolutely.
personalities. And Mike McCarthy wasn't doing a good job with that with Rodgers, and LaFleur did. So, stuff like that. And then the other thing is that the Rams, if you look at it, they've had 3 different defensive coordinators in the past 3 years, and all 3 seasons have been a top 10 defense, right? And granted, you've had Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, you've had guys, but it's crazy that you can have such drastic turnover from Wade Phillips, maybe the best defensive coordinator ever, to Brandon Staley, a guy who was an outside linebackers coach for the Broncos, comes in and had one of the most dominant defense. They had the best defense in the NFL last year and was incredible. And then you have a new guy in Raheem Morris, who people were down on, and especially early in the season, Rams fans were even really down on him, who's coming and put together another top 10 defense, top 5 defense, who's been incredible. And I think, that just shows McVay can see something in other people that he knows if guys are going to be successful or not, right? Like Wade Phillips, that was an easy hire. Dude's a legend. You'd hire him every time. but it really shows when you can get in Brandon Staley or Raheem Morris or all these other guys and be still successful. That shows so much about how good the coach is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think football is one of those sports where you never forget how much coaching matters. I was just talking with a guy the other day after church, and he's like, oh, you went to Tribuco Hills High School? I was like, yeah. He's like, your coaching staff for your JV team came over to CDM High School where my son went, and they won CIF the next year, same kids. So it doesn't matter what level. It just feels like coaching always matters in football. But I mean, what do you think is the sport where coaching matters the least?
NBA.
NBA.
Yeah, I think NBA, because I mean that you look at it in the NBA perspective, and if you have LeBron, it doesn't matter. I could coach the Lakers when LeBron, or the Cavs when LeBron was at his peak, and they were going to be going to the finals every year. Sure. I think in the NBA, and it's not that coaching doesn't matter, but it becomes a lot more, like we were saying with LaFleur, of managing personalities, right? And that's the old discussion of, Phil Jackson's the greatest NBA coach of all time, right? He won, what is it? He won 11 championships, 10 championships. Yep. And you think about that.
Russell.
Yeah. And so you go, okay, well, he's the best coach ever because he wins everywhere he goes, but he also had Jordan and Kobe for all those championships. So it's like, okay, is that him or is that the players? But there is something too, and you saw it in The Last Dance, of managing those personalities, understanding how to get the best out of these guys and put them in positions to be successful. Because Jordan, and he said it in Last Dance, he was pissed when Phil Jackson came in. Doug Collins let him do whatever he wanted. He was leading and scoring every year. Idea. He was killing it. And he says, I don't want this guy who's going to take the ball out of my hands. I don't want him on my team. Oh, well, little do you know, Phil Jackson comes in, they win 6 championships. And so it's like, I think that's where coaching it's in the NBA, it's much less X's and O's and much more managing personalities. Whereas in the NFL, obviously personalities is a big part of it, but understanding your X's and O's is so important in the NFL.
Right. And that segues well into Kyler Murray. And you were talking about Matt LaFleur and how well he manages Rodgers. Kyler Murray unfollowing everyone on social media with Arizona. To me, this is a non-story in the sense that you kind of in our day and age just chalk it up to he's just trying to get the extension early, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because I've been saying it forever that I don't think that Cliff Kingsbury is a good coach. Like I don't. I think that he's had
because he's not on
talented.
The Sean McVay tree, or do you just really believe?
No, I mean he technically kind of is. They mentioned Sean McVay and the reason they hired Kingsbury, but dude, Cliff Kingsbury had a losing record in the Big 12, and he had Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback.
Okay, being in your 30s is not in the Sean McVay coaching tree.
I'm saying when they hired Kingsbury, they noted in the press release that he was friends with Sean McVay.
Okay.
But the dude he had a losing record at Texas Tech. He had Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. He had Baker Mayfield as his quarterback at one point and chose someone else over Baker, right? And again, say what you want of Baker in the NFL, but dude was unbelievable in college, right? So that doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes was unbelievable, but like if you can't win with those guys, he went and was the offensive coordinator for 5 minutes at USC in the offseason and then takes a job with the Cardinals. I don't think he's a good coach. He's just not like you and
right. And just watching eye test the Rams Cardinals game.
Yeah.
First round of the playoffs. That's exactly what you feel. Huge difference.
Yeah. And they've said it every time, but and it's been a knock against McVay, but it's much bigger with Kingsbury that they're always good to start the season and then they suck down the stretch. And so it's like, they just get figured out eventually, right? And this year was the most talented roster they had, so they got figured out the latest, and so they made the playoffs still. But they were a shell of themselves. I mean, they were a wagon early in the season, and then they were just not good down the stretch. And I think a big part of that's on Cliff Kingsbury. I think part of that is Kyler Murray, and that Kyler Murray, it's coming back that he's small. And that's the hard part is it doesn't impact his play, but he is so fragile. And with a guy like that.
I saw that he didn't run. He's 0-10-1 with less than 5 rush attempts in a game. I don't even think he made a rush attempt in the game against the Rams.
Probably not. And that's the thing is that when he's hobbled, he's still a good quarterback, but he's not nearly good enough to make up for everything else that they have. And that's kind of their game plan is just roll it out and hope Kyler can save us.
Right. But 0-10-1, that's like, you got to at least run in the playoffs. That makes me feel like he's already thinking about next season. But I think that's too harsh of a criticism. This is the NFL. He's a winner. He's going to push to win. He must have been hobbled, right?
It's hurt. Yeah. And he was hurt. He had an ankle injury and he was out for a few games in the regular season. And that's the problem is that every year they're great. They're electric. he gets hurt, he comes back, and they're nothing. And maybe not nothing. Maybe they're still good, but they are not the team they were. And in this league, you're measured by what you can do in the playoffs. And they haven't made the playoffs. They made it this year and got blown out. And so, again, you can always be building something that maybe they are, because you really think about that. 3 years ago, they had the number 1 pick in the draft, right? So that's pretty cool to go from the number 1 pick to the playoffs in 3 years. But I mean, you got to figure some better game plan out to do that. And that's clearly not working for the Cardinals.
Yep. All right, let's talk about it. Niners, Rams, NFC Championship. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've went back and I've rewatched the game a time or two, and
you really are thinking about this Super Bowl, my man.
Yeah, I am. But they, the Rams dominated in the first half. I think they had some missed opportunities. I think obviously that interception by Stafford in the first half and the first drive was brutal. That was tough. That was, not a great throw, but the Rams really dominated. They were killing the Niners. The Niners did not rush the ball well. The Rams didn't do a great job of that either, but they were really dominating. Second half, they come out and the Niners come out and they're looking really good. I think they need to stay with their run more. They weren't able to do that, but the thing that's interesting, the big takeaway, especially I have a bunch of Niner fan friends that are trying to give me a hard time. The dropped interception by Tart, right? I think that's a big play in the game. That play also came with 7 minutes left in the game. It's not like that was with a minute left on their last drive of the Rams and he dropped an interception. There was a ton of game left to play there. And then the Niners were still in a position to win the game with the ball at the end of the game, right? They had the ball with a minute and a half left and had a chance to go down there and win it, and they couldn't. And that's what it comes down to. And if you're playing if this would have happened, it would have been different. Jalen Ramsey dropped 2 interceptions. He had one that hit him in the chest that he never drops. Dropped that one. Ben Skowronek dropped a touchdown in the end zone, literally wide open, bounced off his hands in the first half. And so you start looking at that and you're like, well, if every little thing went differently, the Rams still probably would have won that game. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because that didn't happen. The guys dropped the interceptions. They didn't make plays when they needed to. Travon Howard in that interception in the game from the Rams, he could have dropped the ball, right? And that's the same thing of he could have, but he didn't. And that's what it comes down to, is executing on those plays. I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think the last thing I'll say that really stood out to me, and truly the only thing that makes me a little nervous going into the Super Bowl, is that Sean McVay used all of his timeouts and his 2 challenges. He used his 2 challenges in the first half on bad calls.
Aggressive.
And on 2, and used all of his timeouts. It's like he always uses his timeouts early, and thankfully that didn't come back to bite him, but it can. And that it almost did in their game against the Bucs, right? Against the Bucs. It feels
like his mentality is, I'm playing to win every second of the game, not win at the end of the game. So if I need to avoid this penalty here because I think I'm going to score a touchdown on this drive, not later. That's what it feels like. But if you end up in a close game after all that, that's where you get in trouble.
Totally. And I think that's exactly the point, is you can't sacrifice the end for now. And in the first half, it's fine. You know what? Screw it. Use your timeouts. Save your, you don't need to save them. If you can't have a drive at the end of the first half, that sucks, but it's not the end of the world. You need those timeouts at the end of the game. And the best example of that was, shockingly, Andy Reid in that Chiefs-Bills game. But look at that. They had 3 timeouts going with 13 seconds left. They win the game, right? If they don't have those timeouts, if Sean McVay calls us at the beginning of the first half, it's not even a question. The game's over. Right. And so that's where I see that of McVay needs to tie that out. And I don't know if that means he needs to get a guy on his staff who his only job is to worry about clock management or challenges or what, but McVay all season has been horrible with challenges. I think he's won 1 challenge all season, and it was in the playoffs. And so it's those kind of things are the things that scare me. But Stafford, I've said it the whole time, if he can play a clean game, they're going to win. He's been playing great. I think that the Bengals defense is going to do a really good job. They did it against the Chiefs of slowing the Rams down. I think they're going to come out with a good game plan to slow the Rams down. But again, if the Rams can just stay patient and just keep hitting Cooper Kupp every play for 12 yards, right? Hit him for 12, do stuff like that. That you just need to stay patient. And then if they can do that, I think they can absolutely put points up on the Bengals. And, I think the big thing for the Rams is that, you look at what the Titans were able to do, and they got constant pressure on Joe Burrow, right? They had 9 sacks. Everyone's talking about that. And they still won. But you also look at it, didn't Tannehill have like 4 interceptions in that game?
Three, but
yeah, 3 interceptions. If the Titans offense is anything decent in that game, I think they win it.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
And
it was
that's
trash.
and then you look at the Chiefs game, they were able to slow down the Chiefs offense, but the Chiefs defense couldn't hold the Bengals. And
Right.
so if you can mix both of those, which I think the Rams can put constant pressure on Joe Burrow, and if they can score and just stay patient, do well on offense, I think they can do both of those things and make life hell for Joe Burrow and for the Bengals and put them in a bad spot.
Right. Yeah. I think it's more about if the Bengals can execute some really hard plays, because that's been their whole season is, can you make this fade route complete to Jamar Chase? And Jalen Ramsey doesn't allow that, then it's a blowout. If he does allow that, they stay in the game.
Yep. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see what the Rams do. Like, do you just put Ramsey on him and say, all right, Chase isn't going to beat us, and worry about, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins? Or what I would do, because T. Higgins is just so big, I would put Jalen Ramsey on T. Higgins, say he's not going to catch a ball all game, and then double team Jamar Chase the entire time and just say, all right, we're going to live with a double team on Chase, take Higgins out of the game, and then we have good slot corners to put on Tyler Boyd. I think, that's going to be the recipe for success, I would think. But again, Rams have much smarter people than I do in their staff, and they're going to come up with hopefully a really good game plan here.
Right. Yeah. Back to the Niners Rams game. I thought that, I guess the only thing you didn't touch on was Jimmy G. He's gone, right?
Has to be. Yeah. Well, and that's the crazy thing, talking Kyler Murray too. You could have in the NFC West, Russell Wilson's talking about potentially leaving the Seahawks, right? And, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but he could leave the Seahawks.
That comes down to Ciara. We talked about it. Can he get to an A city or a B city? No C cities, no Pittsburgh.
Totally. So, so you could see Russell Wilson gone, Jimmy G could be gone, and then now Kyler Murray's unfollowing all the Cardinals. Maybe he's trying to get moved. All of a sudden, you got 3 brand new quarterbacks in the NFC West. It looks nice for the Rams. I'm
so not sold on this Kyler Murray. How many options does he have? He want him in a dome, right? He's got to be in a dome.
Okay.
Right? So how many teams are available? Or he can be in like Tampa. Weather. He could be in like Tampa.
Yeah, why not? Tampa trade for him. There you go.
Okay, so I'm just saying there's limited options. You got a dome or you got like Tampa.
Yeah, Texas. I mean, somehow if he goes to a Texas team, I mean, he just needs to go to a warm weather team, I think is what it comes down to. He can't be in a cold. But I guess with that too, who knows? I mean, he's never had to play in a ton of cold weather in his career, but maybe he is a good cold weather guy and we just don't know it. He's just never had to do it. I think for him, it's durability. I don't think it's not like Jared Goff, where Goff cannot play in cold weather, right? Like Goff just is bad in cold weather. And so it's definitely not that.
Well, then it's like, where's Jimmy G going to go?
Yeah, I think Jimmy G's a guy who could be good in Pittsburgh. I think Jimmy G would be good there. What about? But
if you're Pittsburgh, why don't you just say, I want to take a gap year and do Mason Rudolph, and then we go big next year, because we're not going to get Aaron Rodgers. We're not going to get Russell Wilson.
Just
like, what's the incentive for giving up something for Jimmy G?
How close do you think you are to competing is the question.
Not close, right?
Right, I would agree. But also, are the Steelers ownership, are they okay with that? They've been good for 30 years. Are they going to be okay with, like, we're just going to be horrible this year? We know it going into the season. We know we're going to be bad.
Right. I think we can still win. We can go 7-10 without a.
I think Mason Rudolph is not. It's going to have to be Dwayne Haskins or like Jameis or something like that. I don't think Mason Rudolph's horrible. I think he's so bad. I'd rather put Duck in there.
No, Duck throws ducks. I'd take Jameis though in the cold. He can throw the ball down the sidelines.
Totally. Yeah. So, but again, like I think that Jimmy G is definitely gone, just for nothing else but for cap reasons. You also gotta figure out Trey Lance, and it showed Jimmy G's not the guy. So I'd be interested. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, because he's another guy. He's almost Kirk Cousins like, if you have a great team around him, he can be good enough, but he's never going to be the guy that gets you there.
But he didn't win the final drive against the Rams. An excellent defense, right?
Right. Yeah.
Burrow could do that drive.
100%.
Not that he would every game, but he could.
Right. And that's the difference, is he's not the guy to win you a game, but he's definitely the guy to not lose you a game. Like, they didn't lose that game because of Jimmy G. They just didn't win the game because of Jimmy G, which I know sounds crazy, but like the Titans lost because of Tannehill.
Right. No,
Jimmy G's not going to do that.
Yeah. All right. Chiefs Chiefs Bengals, that was ridiculous. I mean, what do we have to say? There was one half and then there was a second half.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. That was really crazy. I think the defensive adjustments by the Bengals was incredible. I think that, yeah, I mean, the Joe Burrow, and he just scares the crap out of me. He's got something to him. He's got this swag that, they got the whole city of Cincinnati. It's crazy. Again, I think of everything through the lens of a Rams fan, and that if the Chiefs win that game, 95% of the country is rooting for the Rams against the Chiefs. The Bengals go and win, and now everyone's rooting for the Bengals over the Rams. And I for sure would. If the Rams weren't in it, I'd be rooting for the Bengals. Like, I think, they're a cool team. I love Joe Burrow. He is incredible. Good story. I think, all those things, but I think, it's the Super Bowl. They're there for a reason, but I think that hopefully the Rams will be better. But yeah, man, that game was incredible. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much insight because I was just stressed the whole time about the Rams game. But what do you got? You got any big takeaways from that?
The hours before? No, I don't. I mean, dude, I told you I was grinding. I was like, don't tell me what happened in the Australian Open. So I was expecting that to be a little bit quicker. It's 5.5 hours. So by the time I finally got done with it, I had plans to go watch the Rams Niners game. But I think I started watching that game around 12, the Australian Open final, recorded.
Right.
Like 12 p.m. And it took me like 3 hours to get through.
Yeah.
And that's like skipping some games in the middle of each set because it went 5 sets.
Right.
Medvedev choked. Nadal got the 21st Grand Slam, which I really didn't want. I wanted them all still stuck at 20. But obviously Nadal earned it. Congrats to him. I mean, greatest of all time now, no doubt. Although he does have the French Open thing. What does he have? 11, 12, 13 French Opens? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Totally.
I saw that was his second Australian Open. I would have never guessed. I would have thought he'd won more, right?
Totally. But then when you say, again, like you just said, 11 or whatever of French Opens, it's like crazy to see. And then you put into context, if you take the flip side of that Djokovic, he doesn't have any French Opens, right?
No, he has one. You won a bunch of money on him last year. I told you to go big. And you took him to win in the semi when he beat Nadal in the semi and then won the final, right?
I forgot about that. Yeah, I did. But that's like, that's one of those that it's just crazy that he has 20 with only one at the French, of that he's having to kill it everywhere else because it's just like, all right, Nadal's going to win the French. Let's just move on.
Right. Well, the thing that's crazy is Djokovic has the winning record against Federer and Nadal. So
here's my tennis question for you. Why is Rafa so good on clay?
It's because you can't hit through him, and he just has that topspin ball that just jumps off the court. And he'll just wear you down with it. It's really that simple. He'll just wear you down and you can't get the ball past him.
And he's just the best at those two things of not being able to get it
and then
past
Djokovic slowly became such a monster that he could take out an older Nadal. I'm not sure he could take out a prime Nadal, but an older Nadal where he can only play 1 or 2 sets at, level 100 out of 100.
Right.
Djokovic can take him out in best of 5. I'm not sure in best of 3.
I think that's an interesting point too, of if you think about the most dominant athletes, I think Nadal on clay has got to be like top 5 in that discussion.
Right. Who else would you have?
I don't even know. I'd have to think more about that. But Nadal on clay is just like Michael Phelps in the Olympics. Like
he's lost like 3 times in the French Open.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And that it's not like just some random tournament. This is the best in the world. Right. And it was the best in the world with Fed and Djokovic, the 2 other best of all time at their peaks also. And he's just like, no, it's fine. I got this one.
Yeah. I can't get over that he's won 11, 12, 13 of those. I mean, I don't even know, but I mean, Medvedev's awesome too. He's a great player. He's a fun character too. Number 2 in the world, close to being number 1 with Djokovic out of the Australian Open. And he hits super flat. So he hits like the opposite of Nadal. You could read the brand on the ball.
Right.
So, and he's just this lanky Russian, just wiggling around the court. He's hilarious too. He's so Russian. After the match, he's like, they're asking him all these things. And he's like, they're like, oh, your wife wasn't, he's like, yeah, my wife wasn't here to watch it. The TV's definitely broken. And he what did he do? He did the FIFA celebration after he won his first Grand Slam. What's the one you like?
I like the dead fish, but I don't know.
Dead fish.
He did?
He like almost hurt himself. I'll send it to you after this. Yeah, he just jumped in the air sideways and just took it.
Okay, I love that. Then he's my new favorite. Then I'm all in on him.
Yeah, so he gets angry. He's
like
great.
it.
He rages at the referees.
My
He's a little
my
scary. He was yelling at the ref to look at him. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me. And I'm just like, my man, you're gonna get ejected. But
3 favorite tennis players are him, Nick Kyrgios, and then who's my guy, my 6'11" guy?
John Isner.
No.
Oh, right now, Riley Opelka.
Yeah.
And then honorary mention, John Isner.
John Isner, my honorary big man, John Isner.
So one more thing on tennis, then we'll let this go for everyone who's listening who doesn't like tennis. The reason I'm not excited about Nadal having the 21st, he gets special treatment. In his quarterfinal against Shapovalov, his service. So there's a 30-second clock for when you need to serve. So after every point, you have 30 seconds to serve your next serve. Right. He averaged a second above 31 seconds. His average service time was 31.
You think Fed wouldn't get that?
No, right. So Fed or Djokovic, maybe they would. That's what I'm saying I don't like, but they never push it that close. You don't have to know. So 100% Djokovic and Fed would get special treatment, but Nadal actually uses it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so the guy's like, you guys are so corrupt. He literally told the ref, he's like, he's averaging a second above the clock.
That's brutal.
And that's a point penalty every time. He got a warning once.
Yeah, that's brutal. If a guy's really abusing that and gets called out in the time, that's insane.
And so then I'm watching this match, and then he knows exactly how to use the rule book. So first he gets a checkup on his injury, which isn't actually an injury timeout. Then the set ends. He loses the set. And then he uses his bathroom break and his injury timeout together. So he totally ices the guy for 10 minutes who he's playing against, right?
Yeah.
And he's averaging a second over. I get he's like old and he's just gaming the rules a lot. I mean, I love Nadal in one way, but another way, I'm just like, oh, this is irritating, you know?
I kind of like the savvy veteran move of like, I'm going to do every little trick in the book right now to win. I kind of appreciate that, but I agree. It's kind of like, all right, dude, like he's not 50 barely competing. He's trying to win the championship and still pulling that. Like I could see if he was, you know, in his last season, last legs doing that, like that's one thing.
To make it to like the quarters.
Right. And that'd almost be like, I feel like Fed right now. If Federer was doing that stuff, it's kind of like, all right, he's an old man now.
He's 40. He's Brady. He's 43. I think he's a year younger than Brady. So
exactly.
All right. So needless to say, that whole rant, and you finally got me talking, analyzing something, just asking you the questions about football. No, I barely watched the Bengals Chiefs game. I zoomed through the first half, and then I caught like the back half of the fourth quarter when it got fun. I mean, the only thing I remember is that great Joe Burrow where he got out of like 2 sacks to get the first down. And that's just been the story of the season for him, is just covering for that offensive line.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. But I think, you know, the Rams are in a good position to stop that because they played Kyler Murray. They play Russell Wilson every year. They play the guys that are the most elusive quarterbacks, right? I mean, Joe Burrow's very elusive, very good back there. They're playing the best at it in the NFL, and they were able to contain those guys. And granted, they didn't really have to play. They played Russell like basically 2 halves. But, you know, it's I think it was Joe Burrow's unreal. I think he's very, very good. I think he's going to be very, very good for a long time. I think if he can stay healthy, that's the only knock on Joe Burrow is that he's so tough that he can't sustain all of these hits and all the things that he does. And that's why he got hurt last year. And so if he keeps doing that, his career is not going to be very long. The only way you can sustain hits like that all the time is if you're Big Ben and you're massive. Like you have
I was waiting for you to stop talking. I was going to say the exact same thing. I'm like, he stands in there like he's Big Ben, and Big Ben would miss 1 or 2 games, which you can live with. You can't live with 8 games.
Right.
Here and there.
And again, he is Big Ben for a reason. He was huge. Whereas Joe Burrow's he's big, but he's nowhere near what Roethlisberger was when he was in his prime.
And Roethlisberger get clobbered, have like a bent knee, and be out for a game, or even play with it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Rams at the Bengals, which is funny. I think that just switches every year. It's at home for the Rams. Second time, right, ever. And it's the second time in a row that the home team is at home. Rams -4, over under 48.5. Who do you got?
Rams for sure, of course. I like the Rams actually a lot at 4.5. I've made one of my biggest bets I've made in a long time on just Rams money line for this game.
Okay.
And my reasoning behind that is not that I don't believe they can win at 4.5. It's that I don't want the game to end and the Rams win by 3 and I'm upset by anything. I don't want there to be anything I'm upset about if the Rams win the Super Bowl. And so if I bet them 4.5, they win on a last second field goal, I'd be pissed. I don't want to deal with that. So I'm betting a money line, but I do like them at 4.5. I might take an alternate line at even like 2 touchdowns or something like that, because I think the Rams could very well do that. There's a world in which the Rams blow out the Bengals. I don't see a world in which the Bengals blow out the Rams.
So you are getting fancy with your betting, but then for yourself, you're like, I need to just keep it simple with the money line. And because I was asking you, now you're saying, oh, I'm just betting college football or basketball to get ready for the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm definitely thinking through everything here. I've done all.
So
of
if
that.
you don't have the stress of being a Rams fan, this is what you're saying you would do. You take
Yeah,
the 2 touchdown, you take the 4.5, but because you're a fan, you want to do the
right. And I'm gonna bet all those other things too, but I just made the biggest bet I've made.
Oh, with
I made
your
like
fun money, sure.
I made like a 10-unit play on the Rams money line. So that was a big one. I like Odell to score a touchdown. I like Odell plus 2,800 to win MVP. If he comes in and gets like 2 touchdowns and 150 yards, I could see him winning MVP. I like Aaron Donald to win MVP. What other ones?
Okay, can we talk MVP while you're thinking about that? I got a stat for you. You were reading all of your sites. I'm curious what your favorite stats are you've heard going into the Super Bowl from all this coverage you've been reading. Mine is, when's the last time the regular season MVP has won the Super Bowl?
Has won the Super Bowl.
Regular season.
Aaron Rodgers against the Steelers.
1999, Kurt Warner.
That's interesting.
I'm like, guys, we got to figure this out, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's not going to happen again this year. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't hear that. I mean, here's my favorite stat. Have you seen? I'm sure you've seen this. What's the record of the team wearing white or the light colors in the last 17 Super Bowls?
I haven't seen it. 17. 3-14.
14-3.
That's okay. I mixed.
Yeah,
I totally flip-flopped it. Sorry. I was trying to think of in the Niners Chiefs. I was thinking back to that. I'm like, it's 3-14 or 14-3. They're both red and white. And I was like, which one was red? Which one was white?
Yep. So out of the last 17 Super Bowls, the white team is 14-3. The Rams are wearing white. I like that. I think, like
huge Omenberg, huge.
I think so too. I think, you look at there's something to be said about going to your first Super Bowl versus your second. I think that's really important, right? McVay's been there already. Zach Taylor was on the Rams team when they did that, so that's fair. But the team, a lot of the core players on the Rams were there last time. I think they understand what it's like to get there, what you need to do, what are the things there. And even just small things of looking how they celebrated the NFC Championship game this year versus when they beat the Saints. Like they acted like they just won the Super Bowl when they beat the Saints. Whereas this time they're like, all right, let's go. When's the next game? Like, we're ready to go. This is, exciting. So I think that's another added element. You just see kind of this calmness on the team of like, all right, like, let's do this, right? We're not here to mess around. This is a business trip. And I think they're not even going anywhere. But I think, there's something to be said about being able to sleep in your bed, stay at your same, practice facilities, do all that stuff. I think that's huge. I think the interesting note was that if SoFi was not constructed the way it was, the Rams would have to be in the road team's locker room. The only reason they're able to be in their own locker room is because the Chargers locker room is technically also a home locker room.
Interesting.
And so the Bengals will be in the Chargers locker room. The Rams will be in their own locker room. I think that matters. I think, it's going to be business as usual for the Rams of playing another home game. I think it's going to be,
the Bengals as the home team don't get to pick which home locker room they want to be in.
They might be able to. I think they just said, like, here's the deal. We're giving the Rams their own. I don't know what the decisions behind. Because another thing that you
don't know any decisions Roger Goodell makes, right?
Never. Talk about corruption.
We'll get there.
Oh, yeah. And then the other thing that was interesting of note was that So the Rams are wearing their modern throwbacks is what they're called. It's an alternate jersey. You're not
Okay.
allowed to wear alternate jerseys in the Super Bowl. And so they had to get an exemption to allow them to wear these uniforms. So that's a cool little note that they're able to do also.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't like the Rams uniforms. They're normal blue and yellow. It's like a color rush every week. Do you like it?
It's grown on me a lot. Yeah, it's grown on me a lot. The blue and yellow is 6. They've been winning in them. I love the bone jerseys, the gray almost. I think those are so sick. I think their blue ones are not as cool. I think the bone ones are really, really cool.
I think the white will be nice too.
And then the white are going to be so
especially clean, 14-3.
Yeah, I think that'll be very cool. And
yeah,
the
so -4. I'm taking the Rams too. Over under. I'm going over because I want a fun game.
Yeah, I
blowout. I'd take under.
I'm like going back and forth. I keep switching even earlier. I think I bet the over, but I think I like the under. I don't really know what I like in this game. I got to think a little more when I get closer to it, but I could see it being like 24-17 Rams. Like I could see it being a lower scoring game. In 48.5, I'm surprised it's not that high. I'd be, it could be a lot higher. So I definitely think it should be higher.
54.5.
Right. And so that's why I'm betting the over, is because I don't think the line is correct. And so as like, just from a gambling perspective, I have to take, because I don't think the line is right.
You think that's just smart money thinking that this is a Rams Super Bowl?
Maybe, but they had high. I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Washington Commanders, like it or hate it?
It's fine.
Oh,
I'm like, it's meh. It doesn't move the needle for me.
I think the football team is so much cooler.
I like the football team better. I don't know why, but I kind of liked it.
It's classic because they have all that rustic, like old school apparel. Kind of like everything is like back from the 80s or 70s, like your high school varsity jacket.
Yeah.
If you're a Washington fan.
I think it's going to be interesting it's going to be weird in that, like, in 20 years, kids that are growing up right now will only know them as the Commanders, and we will still probably be calling them the Redskins.
Dude, like, I thought you said you'd never say that name.
I know, I didn't. I did.
But now they're gone.
They're gone.
Oh, you said not until it was removed or something.
Yeah. I would not refer to that team. They are not that. I'm just saying it, still thinking that in your head.
Okay.
Or like, I don't even know if you know this, just because I always forget it too. Do you know what the Cleveland baseball team's name is?
The Indians, right?
No, they changed it.
They did.
Yeah, so they're the Cleveland Guardians now.
Oh, my goodness.
Never going to know that. Never going to remember that. That's never going to come up. But they're the Cleveland Guardians now. And that's another, just like, I'm going to call them the Cleveland Indians forever. And my kids are going to be all confused as to who the Indians are, because I'm going to just keep calling them the Guardian. Or they're going to think anyways, I don't know.
Yeah. So do you think with I was listening to a segment, another show where they're ranking the top 10 players for the Super Bowl, and they were kind of doing it based on, this position's more valuable. So I think they put in Whitworth at like 10 because he's a tackle, which is whatever. But do you think, I think it'd be fun if they started doing MVP by just best player, not most valuable player, like Cooper Kupp this season, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It'd be fun to have a receiver win. Like, do we really need to go back to Bo Jackson to, like, what I'm saying? Can we get something instead of Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I agree.
I think Super Bowl.
I think regular season too, it's like, who was the most dominant that season?
Right.
And Cooper Kupp was more dominant.
That's how it is in the NBA, at least.
Right. And like Jokic won it last year, and it doesn't mean that he was the best player. And granted, it's stats and stuff, but like it's interesting because Rodgers was the best quarterback this year for sure. So he's going to win MVP, but Cooper Kupp was so much better than every other receiver. And that just shows literally led the league in every single stat. Like, that's the craziest part. And even if you take out the 17th game, he was still like top 10 all time in all three categories. Yeah. And it's like just absurd that he was able to do that. And
like, if you're making an NFL films 20 years from now for our kids, like they turn on NFL Network, it's so much more fun if Cooper Kupp won an MVP than if Aaron Rodgers won again.
Well, and in 20 years,
it highlights how good of a season he had, a historical season.
Totally. And in 20 years, we're going to remember Cooper Kupp's season much more than Aaron Rodgers' season this year. And obviously that helps because they're in the Super Bowl, but it's going to be remembered as the Cooper Kupp season.
Right.
Right. And like, That's the crazy thing. And it's so interesting. I remember even seeing in the last few weeks of the season, it's a little different, but they were talking that Jonathan Taylor should maybe be the offensive player of the year over Cooper Kupp. And it's like, yeah, Jonathan Taylor had a good season, but he wasn't even the best running back this year. Derrick Henry was until he got hurt.
Right.
Like Derrick Henry was killing him and everything until he got hurt. And Jonathan Taylor's an animal, but Cooper Kupp from the first week of the season was the best receiver in the NFL. He set the record for most games with 90 yards. He's just unguardable. It's kind of to the point now, like I watch games and it's third down and I only watch Cooper Kupp because I'm just like, all right, well, like he's going to get open here.
Okay, well,
like,
this is such a contrary opinion because I love everything you're saying about Cooper Kupp, but we also talked about the coaching for the Rams.
Yeah.
This is my crazy take. I feel like a lot of teams would be better off because they don't have the coaching the Rams do with Jamar Chase than Cooper Kupp. Is that crazy? Because they don't have the coaching.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand.
You can just put Jamar Chase on a fade. I mean, yes, a lot of those teams that don't have the coaching don't have the quarterback either, so that kind of kills that argument. But to me, it's like you need the coaching.
I think those are three things that like you need a quarterback, receiver, and coach all to be on the same page. And Cooper Kupp, like everyone says it, you see his interviews, all that stuff. He's the smartest wide receiver that anyone's ever seen play the game of football. Yeah. And like, so you need to have a coach and a quarterback that can maximize that. Right. Whereas, and that's where like you can have guys where if I just throw a good deep ball, Deshaun Jackson might be the best because he can just get open deep and I can just chuck it to him. Or like,
or Josh Gordon on the Browns, really.
Exactly.
That's an incompetent coach, incompetent coaching staff. And he was just chuck it to him. It was fine. Totally. That's kind of what I mean with the whole, like, could Cooper Kupp, would you have Josh Gordon as prime on the Browns or Cooper Kupp? Like half these teams are incompetent, you know?
Yeah.
They wouldn't even honor an NFL MVP like that.
Totally. And that's where like DeAndre Hopkins might be the guy you want. Like DeAndre Hopkins or like Mike Evans is just so big. Like a guy like that might be the guy you want. You know, there's different guys. If you're just saying, if you put me in at quarterback, who would be the best option for me to have as a wide receiver? Yeah, Cooper Kupp probably is not that because I don't have the brain. I don't have the timing. I don't have all that. But I could just chuck it deep and have DeAndre Hopkins go up and get it.
Yeah.
But I think it also becomes Mike Evans becomes a lot easier to guard because he's one-dimensional, whereas Cooper Kupp can do everything. And I would say the other thing Cooper Kupp does better than any receiver in the NFL is he's the best blocking receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like by far. And so I think that's another added element of just like what he brings to the table is that dude is such an animal blocking.
What position is he mostly blocking from? The slot?
Yeah, but they'll run him almost.
That's even more valuable, right? Because half the time, you know, with Juju Smith-Schuster, they're like, he's a great blocker, but you have to run sweeps for that, or you have to break it for that to matter.
Right. And that's what Kupp does. And they have him pulling like a guard and just flattening like outside linebackers. That's the thing is it's not like he's out blocking DBs and making them look silly because he's just bigger than them. He's blocking like defensive linemen or linebackers and like standing them up and doing all this crazy stuff. And like, there's something about that because Robert Woods is the same way. Robert Woods is probably the second best blocking receiver in the NFL. And those guys just care about blocking. That is something they take pride in. Those guys would count, and they had a bigger competition on who had more impact blocks in a season than who had more touchdowns or receptions or anything.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what can I do to make my team better? And that's what Kupp does better than anyone else.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, last thing. Well, a couple of things we got to touch on. Brian Flores, we got to talk about it.
Yep. I mean, first off, absurd. Let's just start from the beginning. Insane the Dolphins fired him. He is an awesome coach. Like and then even the context now of it coming out that they were literally trying to pay him to lose games. That's how much this franchise was trying to lose.
Well, at least that makes sense why they didn't like him now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because at first I was just confused. I was like, is this like complete incompetence, like Texans level? Like I thought the Dolphins were maybe a tier above the Texans.
Yeah.
No, I think Ross just hated Flores.
Yeah, because he didn't listen. They weren't on the same page. And like, so it's crazy that with a team trying to lose, he was still almost made the playoffs in 2 straight years with teams trying to lose. I think he's a good coach. I would love him to come be defensive coordinator for the Rams or come do something. Like he's going to get a job somewhere else until he filed this lawsuit. And now it's like, who knows if he's ever going to be an NFL coach again. But I think everything he's saying is spot on. I think the Bill Belichick texts are very damning. And the funniest just old man move that he texted the wrong guy in Belichick.
Crazy. So for
I
those who
love
don't
that.
know, he texted the wrong Bryant. There are two Bryants who are on the coaching tree of Bill Belichick. Both were going for head coaching jobs. And I guess he didn't save Brian Flores' number or put it in with the last name. And he was talking to the wrong Brian, congratulated the other Brian, not Brian Flores, on getting the job. And somehow Brian Flores sniffed it out. Like it just didn't feel right because he hadn't interviewed yet, right?
Yeah, he hadn't interviewed yet. And that shows the whole corruption of this part, that they just hired or had him as a fake interview. But yeah, that's the craziest part. And the saddest part of those text messages is when he texts him and says, hey, you know, this is Brian Flores, right? And then Belichick replies, my bad, I messed that up. They're going with Daboll. It's like, oh, that's just a killer because, you know, he got the first text from Belichick. He's so stoked. He's just like out of his mind excited.
Oh.
And then he immediately gets it. And goes, wait, Brian Daboll's up for this too. Did he mean to text him? And then he does. And your heart just like drops. That's the worst feeling. Terrible. So, yeah, I mean, I think everything he's saying is right. I don't know. I think there's a systemic issue in the NFL of that the NFL is led by old white guys, right? All of the owners are old white guys.
Yep.
And whatever excuse you want to give to them, old white guys were brought up in a time that was very different than now and have pre-established judgments and bias that is clearly causing an issue when hiring Black or minority coaches.
Yeah, except for the Steelers, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. And I think that's, and again,
I just brought that up because clearly the Rooney Rule isn't working, and they're probably going to get rid of it, right? Because the whole point of this is that they're bringing in the minority hire just to qualify. You have to interview minorities as part of the Rooney Rule, and they're bringing them in later after they've already made their decision, which is so incompetent. It shows how much still of kind of like a boys club it is, a little old boys club, that you would make such an incompetent error like that if you're supposed to be like, you know, we think of management and GMs as so sophisticated now, right?
Yep.
And it's not at all. That's such a blunder. That's like something like we would do in high school.
Castro would do that.
Yeah, Castro would do that. Not that we would because of the Rooney Rule, just that type of blunder, just common sense.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, you know, the Rooney Rule in its infancy was designed because Black coaches, there were not a lot of them at all in the league, like not even at head coaches, like assistant coaches or whatever. So they created the Rooney Rule to get minority and African-American coaches exposure to the interview process. That was to say, hey, bring them in, let them understand the questions, what they need to bring to the table, let them understand what's going on here, because there was no role models for them. So that was the point of it in the beginning. But now it's like, hey, there are a ton of very qualified minority coaches, a ton of them. And even right now, you're saying Brian Flores, great coach. David Coley got dirty in Houston. He got fired. Like you see all these guys and you're like, wait, but there's good coaches. Eric Bieniemy, he's a great coach. And who knows why he hasn't gotten a job. I'm not saying that.
And then they hired Lovie Smith. Is that real?
Yeah. And
Can that be real? Can that be possible? How do you not keep David Coley and you get Lovie?
Two reasons. One is that they want to keep losing. So they hire Lovie Smith.
Illinois. Okay.
He was horrible at Illinois.
I know. So, do you know that he won that 8 overtime game against?
Yeah.
That's cool, but
he's a horrible coach at Illinois. One, they wanted to keep losing. And then two, you notice they hired him after all this Brian Flores stuff came out. So they probably are saying, hey, don't look at us. We hired a Black coach. You can't come at us for anything that we've done wrong.
It's ridiculous.
And again, I would not be saying that about anyone literally other than Lovie Smith, in that he just was not a good coach. Like, he's just not a qualified coach. Right. And so I'm not saying that they only hired him because of his race for any reason other than he's been established as not a good coach. It'd be like if they hired Jeff Fisher.
Right.
It's like the dude's just proven he's not that guy. And so that's the problem, is that I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, well, we want to keep losing, so it really doesn't matter who the head coach is. They could bring me in to be their head coach and it would be the same thing. So why don't we just go get a minority coach so that nobody can get mad at us? And you know, the way the NFL works and the way things that are coming out are, that wouldn't be overly surprising to me.
Yeah, it's just a black box. It's like a government agency. I saw they put out a 300-page report on Deflategate, but nothing, they have nothing out on this. It's
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
totally agree.
politics.
Totally agree.
Okay, the one other thing I wanted to mention was anything else on that, by the way?
No,
Okay. Lincoln Riley, USC. The media's going crazy. What is this NIL thing? They keep referring NIL. And is that just national intent letter?
name, image, and likeness. So it's
Okay.
people,
That's just the
players
acronym
can
for name,
make,
image, and likeness.
yeah, people can make money off of
So,
them.
so many rules have changed. Can you just run people down on what's going on? Apparently, the transfer portal is like you can transfer right away now.
Yeah, so it used to be, if we look at college sports 5 years ago, if you transferred from a D1 to another D1, you had to sit out a year before playing.
Okay.
The only exception to that was that if you graduated from a college, you could enroll for your master's at another school, and then you could play immediately.
Okay.
That's now changing that within the transfer portal. They just grant exceptions to everyone to where you can play immediately the next year after transferring. It's just pretty uniform now. The other thing is that just happened last year is that a rule got passed that now student athletes can make money off of their name, image, and likeness. So they can sign endorsement deals. They can go, be in a commercial for a car dealership, and that's allowed now, and they get paid for that. And so that's kind of what's changed now, is that if you're a school that can get people these name, image, and likeness deals, it is turning into who can pay you the most.
Right. And what I was hearing was that originally this was intended to be something for stars, like they would get the name, image, and likeness, but now it's like they're coming up with creative ways where like everyone on the team's getting like a base package. Is that something you're seeing? Or
I haven't seen that, but I'm not surprised by that. If that's
at
the
schools
case.
like USC, they're coming up with creative ways where everyone's going to get like a base.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be the case if you're going to play there. I think all if you're going to pay players to play a sport, everyone should get paid.
Right.
And so the way to do that, and this is what people aren't understanding too, is if you're a booster, you make your money doing something, right? If you have money. So even if you work as a stockbroker and you make a bunch of money and you're a big time booster for a school, you just signed that kid to be an endorsement person for you and pay him $2 million. It's what they've been doing forever. They're just doing it legally now.
Yeah. Well, I just, it's hard for me to see how this plays out. Do you think that, it's going to be like the NFL and NBA where, just big cities have advantages? Like OBJ's happy to go to LA. He wouldn't necessarily be happy to go to, I don't know, Houston, obviously. Another, going to be the third largest city, but not a city. Do you think just it's going to turn into how the pros are, where major markets have an edge? Or do you think it's going to get out of control and they're going to have to reel it back in?
No, I think it already is that way. And I think it has been that way for a while, because it's not markets in college. It's what schools can pay you. So like what schools for college football are paying the most? It's Alabama, it's Auburn, it's Texas, it's USC, UCLA, these schools that it doesn't, I mean, Auburn's Alabama's in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That's not an A market, but you have boosters that are from there that will pay a kid $1 million to come to that school.
Booster plus brand, not necessarily the city.
Yeah, because then again, you're only there for a few years. And you're young, you'll make up your money once you get to the pros. So it's really just a matter of, what boosters will pay or what markets. Again, markets help, right? Because if you're at USC, you can make money off of being there. That does absolutely help. But I think boosters can cover that, because Notre Dame will still get people, Alabama will still get people. These big schools are still going to get guys, even if they're in bad markets.
Yeah. I don't know. This has given some new life to college football, I think, with the SEC dominating. I'm excited to see if a school like USC is going to be able to come out and compete for a national championship the first year. I want to believe it. What do you think, though?
And they need a line. Their offensive line sucks. So they need to get their offensive line figured out. But USC, I mean, they're going to be good. I think next year they're going to be even better, like 2023, because they're going to get the number one receiver, number one quarterback, and the number 3 receiver are all coming now to USC. That's going to obviously help. And then USC is going to be good. They got 2 good running backs coming in. They got a good quarterback coming in. I think they could still be pretty good, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years, especially with these coaches moving. It'll be very interesting to see.
Seriously. All right. That's it, everyone. This is Spitting Fire. Enjoy the Super Bowl.